there are more than just single scalar primitive values what we can use in JavaScript, and the most common things that we run into are some form of collections, and the easiest one to use is an array, and that's considered to be an indexed collection because you access it by an index, and it's zero based, so it starts at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. But you might not want to have an index-based collection. You might want to have some sort of key value pairs, and that's actually where a map can be extremely helpful. And a kind of like a very similar to a map is a set, and map and a set are extremely similar in that they're keyed collections. However, a set holds unique values only. So if you want to try to add the same value twice, it won't raise an error. There's no issue with trying to add the same value again, just it'll be ignored. So you are guaranteed with a set unique values. You can kind of think of a set as when you want something to be distinct, which is like sometimes what you want to do in SQL or PL SQL. A set actually might be what you're looking for. So let's take a quick look at those objects. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of my equality, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at collections. Okay. If you want to make a collection, a very simple array, then quite simply you just use angle bracket notation. And if you want to add values to an array, there are several different ways that you can do that. You can directly access an index, so it's 0 based, so I have to start at 0. I can push onto the end a value, or I can unshift onto the very beginning a value. And so if I go and I try to loop over all of my values that are in this array, I should see that I get beet, tomato, and pea. Even though I added beet at the very end, you can see that it was unshifted to the very front. So beet actually gets logged out first. That might be something that you want to do. There's a neat little trick that you can use to reset an array. And that is when you have an array, you can always set the length property to 0. And by setting the length property to 0, you actually effectively cleared out an array. And to my knowledge, that's the quickest, best way to reset an array. So let me go ahead and save that. You'll see when I get to this console.log here, you can see that the array is actually empty. Cool. How is this different than a map? Well, if you want a map, you actually have to declare that you want a new map, and we're going to be dealing with departments. And the data that we're going to be working with here, it should be kind of similar. This is the some depth table data that I've kind of put in here. And what's interesting about this is I have a key that is the department number, and I have a value, which is an object, which is potentially multiple values. So I could have added location or other things here. And what's important about this is I can choose to get access to the key, or I can choose to get access to the values. And depending on how I'm using this map, I might want either or. And so the way that you can do this is I can say, hey, departments, give me all of your keys, and I can loop over those keys. Or I can say, and I really should probably call that key. Or I could say, give me all of your values, and I probably should call that value. And so this first loop is going to look at this left side, and this second loop is going to look at this right side. So let's go ahead and just run that for a second and observe what happens. You can see that the first one returns 10, 30, 40, whereas the second one actually returns accounting, sales, and operation. And I want to point out here that I was able to get the value dot name. If I didn't actually reference that particular property, then it would log out the whole object, like so. This next piece is a little bit of syntactic sugar and this is a relatively new feature. It's called destructuring. Destructuring, it looks a little bit silly, and at first, at least for me, destructuring made absolutely no sense. It was like the weirdest thing. So what we're doing is we're just iterating over our map, and I want to point out what exactly this department is in our map. And let me just go ahead and log this out. And we're just going to comment all of that out. And I'm just going to console.log department. Okay, and notice that in my map, it actually gives me an array with two objects. The first element is my key, and the second element is my value. So the important thing to know here is that when you iterate over a map, it gives you an array with two elements. Knowing that, and we know the position, the first element is always the key, and the second element is always the value. What we can do is we can use object destructuring or array destructuring, and we can say, all right, I'm going to make two new variables. And first is depno, and second is dept. Why in this order? Because if we go look at our array, the first element is the department number, and the second element is the actual object. The same thing works as I did destructuring with an array. I could do destructuring with an object, but instead of positional, this is more the name of the property. So in other words, we can see that we have a name property, and it has accounting, sales, operations. So after we get our department, we're then going to go ahead and say we want to get the name property off of this department. And why do it like this? Well, it's just a kind of a shorthand convenience, because I could totally say name equals dept dot name like this, or I could just use my destructuring to pull that name off. One of the reasons why I like using that is because it makes sure that things are consistently named. I don't kind of make up my own variables to use. I just reuse the names that were already given to things. And that consistency, I think, is very helpful in a program. Oops. Okay, and so if I log this out, you can see that I successfully destructured all of these objects. I have the department, I have the name, and I also have the department number. So you can see those different objects are successfully being logged out here. Okay. Now the last collection that we're going to take a look at is a set, and I'm just going to go ahead and uncomment everything out. And this one's a little bit different. When you make a set, what you do is you call add, and you add values. Notice that I've tried to add Blake 3 times. Notice again, I can iterate over my keys, and I can iterate over my values, but we're going to notice something kind of interesting about these two outputs. Let me go ahead and comment all of this stuff out so we don't see that anymore. And we're going to save. Okay. Notice that I have Smith, King, and Blake. Smith, King, and Blake. I did not add Blake multiple times. Notice when I get my key and my values, notice that they are exactly the same output. They're storing exactly the same thing. If you want to erase your set, you can call clear, in which case I log it out and there's nothing there. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand the ball over to Dave for just a second and bring this up.
Hey, thanks, Tyson. How's everybody doing? Not a lot of questions today, so don't forget, if you have questions, we'll try to leave a couple of minutes at the end, but if you have questions, please chat them in. Lino will answer, Tyson will answer some, so you can even just chat in how you're doing. Are we hitting the right points for you with respect to getting started with JavaScript? The page that Tyson's showing you now, just a reminder of some of the services we offer. So as we're happy as a relatively small and very specialized team of Oracle experts, we've been referred to recently as an Oracle tech boutique. And one of the services that we provide is Apex application design and development services, and that's just a short bit of the experience we have, some of the things that we've worked on recently. From here, you can click on the team and you can see more about Tyson and Lino and Gary Lawton and Greg, so you can see our team. You can also navigate over to other things that we can offer, mentoring and training. We do a lot of design reviews, so before you bake in a certain design, Tyson and the team can spend a couple hours looking at your design and seeing if you're adhered to best practices. I'll put a link to Tyson's next JavaScript class in the chat, and that might be valuable to some of you. It's coming up, I believe, in July. And with that, back to Tyson. Thank you so much, Tyson.